The Hack Your Health event, formerly known as KetoCon, is going to be going on May 31st through June 2nd, 2024 in Austin, Texas. And I do plan to be there this year. You can click on the link and use my discount code Dante and save another $50 off of the currently reduced price of $299 for your 3-day passes and get them for $249. That's going to end at the end of March. I'll just be happy to be able to meet some of you face to face so we can talk about how carnivore way of living by my influence here on this channel has changed your life, because it definitely encourages me to be able to hear your stories. And I also want to continue to encourage you with the opportunity to say thank you for coming and watching my videos and allowing me to be a part of your life like this. Hey everyone, welcome back to Ferrigno Freedom channel. I'm Dante Ferrigno, and I have been doing a carnivore diet now for 3 years, and it has literally changed everything in my life in so many ways. It's hard to believe. It really is hard to believe. It's even hard for me to believe experiencing it after 3 years. And every once in a while, I like to do reactions to certain videos that talk about carnivore living and other things that involve our health. And today I wanted to cover something that I almost skipped over. I saw Dr. Paul Saladino had posted this video, "What is fluoride really?" You know, and that's been a topic for my wife and I, because when we go to the dentist, we have been telling them not to put fluoride on our teeth or on our children's teeth, because we don't really think it's absolutely necessary, especially if you're eating foods that don't cause you to have teeth problems. But because it has a potential danger to it. I really don't know enough about it to make a decision clearly about whether or not it's good for me. I just figured it's something we don't need naturally, or we don't get naturally, then it's probably not that big a deal. And then I saw this article that Vinny Casolaro shared on the Ferrigno Freedom group page that I have set up. It's a private page, so I'm always careful whenever I share something that's posted on the private Facebook group, because I don't want to share information that people don't want shared publicly. But this looked more like something that he wanted to reach out to me, because he knew I like to drink San Pellegrino drinks. And I haven't had very many of them lately because they're a little on the expensive side. I'd rather just stick with club soda. But it got me to wanting to look a little closer at that as well, because I never would have thought that San Pellegrino would have fluoride in it. But we'll get to that article in a moment. First, I want to take a look at this video by Dr. Saladino, because I, like many of you, may not have looked into fluoride that closely. So I thought we would get started by taking a look at this video by Dr. Saladino and see what he has to say about it. I'll go ahead and get it ready here. All right, now that I got my headphones on, we can kick off.
So I wanted to start with fluoride.
Fluoride, okay.
I think that whenever I talk about fluoride, people really are interested. I grew up drinking tap water.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't do my intelligence any good, probably. And, you know, I grew up with a mom who was a nurse and a dad who was a doctor, and we did a lot of things wrong, even in the medical family. But it's been so interesting as I've gone down this fluoride rabbit hole, and I've heard you talk about this.
Yeah. So
what do you think about drinking water?
Well, I mean,
fluoride,
I think before you even talk about fluoride, you got to talk about, like, where does fluoride come from?
Right.
I mean, it's a byproduct of phosphate fertilizer production. It's called fluorosilicic acid. It also comes from the production of aluminum, and other metals. And fluorosilicic acid was the waste product from phosphate fertilizer production. So, and the reason why it was a waste product is they realized when they kept it in the fertilizer, it would burn the root and harm the plant. So they said, well, let's take the fluorosilicic acid out. But now we're making tons of fertilizer and we have this big pile of waste. So what are we going to do with the waste? And I don't know who, I haven't gotten to the genesis of who had the bright mind to say, hey, we'll sell it to these municipalities and we'll dump it in the drinking water, because there is marginal evidence that, can prevent tooth decay.
Right.
And some of that evidence is weak at best, forming a nanoparticulate layer over the tooth and marginally protecting the aluminum. But I think you get the same thing by brushing with hydroxyapatite or and just brushing your teeth. But and so they started to dump it into the municipalities. And what's really interesting is, the FDA kind of wants to have have it both ways, right? So they put warning labels on toothpaste that say, for children, first of all, keep toothpaste out of the reach of children. That's warning labels on there, keep it out of the reach of children. And then they also put a warning on there that says if more than a pea-sized amount used for brushing the teeth is swallowed, to contact poison control immediately. And you can see this on the back of a warning label. If you have Crest or Colgate or another toothpaste brand that has fluoride, just go look at it. It's a required disclosure. It will be right on there, the contact poison control immediately if you.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that I haven't thought about in a while, because ever since I've been on carnivore, my teeth are always so clean. I hardly ever have to brush. I usually floss my teeth after I eat to make sure I don't have any leftover meat between my teeth, because that can get impacted in my gums or something. And I have multiple crowns, so it gets very easy to get meat caught in there. But before I used to eat this way, when I used to eat the standard American diet, I would always feel like there was this layer of film over my teeth that I could feel if I rubbed my tongue across the top of my teeth, and I would think, oh, that's no good. I got to go brush. I don't get that anymore. So I have hardly any need to brush my teeth. Occasionally I'll brush my teeth just using water and a toothbrush, because I feel like I want to make sure I got all the meat out. Maybe I didn't grab it all with the dental floss, so I'll use the toothbrush, but I don't need it quite as often. I don't need it nearly as often as most people would think that they do need it. And my breath always smells good. My teeth are always clean, and it's amazing. The only time that's different is when I've broken my rules about what I'm supposed to be eating, like on Thanksgiving when I had several pieces of pie. Boy, I needed to brush my teeth after that. You can guarantee it, because all that sugar just got right on my teeth and was causing all those issues. So I haven't thought about this in a while. I haven't thought about what toothpaste says. And this is why this is such a good thing, I think, for us to cover, because many of us who have been doing carnivore for a while might be experiencing similar things, and we're finding that we don't need toothpaste like we used to. We don't need sunscreen. We don't need deodorant, because our bodies are not putting out the same poisons and having the same reactions to the food we used to eat. So this is a big part of why I wanted to take a closer look at this, because it's been out of my thought process for a while. And because I usually drink purified water or I drink bottled water, I drink a lot of club soda that I buy from Publix. And I also occasionally have either San Pellegrino or Evian or what's that other one? Perrier. There's a few of the mineral waters that I really like. So I figured they're not going to have anything in them except natural ingredients. So let's press on and see how this plays out, because apparently, from what I've seen recently, it could play a role for you.
Swallow more than the amount needed for brushing. But then when you start to say, well, how much is needed for brushing? What's the concentration of fluoride in a pea-sized amount versus the amount that I would get in 6-8 ounce glasses of water a day, which is what I'm supposed to be drinking. And when you realize it's 4 times the level
in water,
if I drank the recommended number of glasses of tap water a day, why wouldn't I call poison control at the end of the day?
Everyone call poison control.
Which brings me to one of my points that I bring up all the time. I mean, I get hammered all the time for talking about cyanocobalamin and other microdosing things that I believe that are cumulatively toxic to us, because lots of things are not toxic in single doses. And the prevailing wisdom is that the dosage determines the poison. And you hear a lot of people say that, they repeat it a lot in the public domain. The truth is that's true for a lot of things. But very often it's the cumulative dosage that determines the poison. There's safe levels of mercury. There are CDC, FDA levels of mercury. There's safe levels of fluoride. But the cumulative toxicity, I mean, nobody got mercury poisoning from eating one piece of tuna fish.
Right.
It had a safe level of mercury in it. But if they ate it every single day, the cumulative toxicity is what the problem is. And I think that fluoride is one of those things that permanently needs to be out of our life for good. It's a neurotoxic. The National Toxicology Program did a survey. I want to say, I don't want to misquote it, but it was about 3,600 municipalities in the United States. It was originally suppressed. They actually got it, the report released by court subpoena.
Suppressed?
Oh yeah, it was suppressed until March of last year.
Like so many good research findings that I'm sure we'll talk about on this podcast.
Yes. And And they sued under the Freedom of Information Act, and it was released. And you can Google it, National Toxicology Program, fluoride. You're welcome to read the study. I want to say it was about 3,600 municipalities, 52 of 54 studies. They found an inverse relationship between IQ and fluoride concentration, especially in prepubescent teens. And so during the neurodevelopmental cycle of the brain, when it's very neuroplastic, these neurotoxins have significant detrimental effects. And we don't want to be the guys that are out there just fear-mongering, because that anytime you bring something up like that, they're like, well, now you think that everything kills you. No, I don't think that everything kills you. It's really about getting back to the basics, right? That's not how fluoride comes out of a glacier. I mean, that's not how water comes out of a glacier. And I really feel like we need to develop this kind of invisible barrier around ourselves. And protect the temple, right? I mean, we have two choices. We can either filter things before they get to the temple, or we can let the temple be the filter. So,
boy, he's bringing up some points that I was thinking about depending on how this video went, because I haven't seen this yet. We're watching it together. And these are some things that I thought as I read the article that I'm going to cover after this. But it's just amazing to me that we're so on the same page about, I don't like the fear-mongering idea. I realize that we're not going to live forever. I mean, we're only in this world for a little while, and there's nothing we can do to live a whole lot longer than we normally would. I think it comes down to, personally, and this is my faith side speaking, I think we all have a date with death, and it was set the day we were born. And the Lord knows what that day is, and I don't know what that day is. But between birth and death, how well we live can be determined by the decisions we make about what we put in our body, what we put in our mind, and the things that we do to try to stay healthy so that we can do the things that we have to do each day, whether that's going to work, whether that's going to church, whether that's taking your kids to school, whether that's being the homeschool mom or dad, whether that's doing whatever it is that you need to do to be a responsible adult that is raising children or being a child under parents or a citizen of a community, whatever that may be. Things that we do that are healthy for us mentally, physically, and socially are important. They're a part of the duty that we have, not only to ourselves and each other, but it's a duty to God as well, to use what you've been given the best you can. And when I think about things like, people talk to me about nonstick coating in the air fryer, and people talk to me about fluoride in the mineral water that was one of my favorite things to drink. My first thought is how big of a concern really is this? Because I've looked into other forms of cooking, for instance, when it comes to the coating on the nonstick coating in an air fryer as opposed to stainless steel. Well, stainless steel is not perfect either. There was, I think, chromium or something that's mixed in with the stainless steel, that a small percentage of that transfers to your food. So there's no perfect route. If you're cooking over an open flame, you've got carbon particles, you've got ash, you've got material in there that is carcinogenic. So it's like, what kind of level of perfection are we looking for? I don't want to live in a bubble for the rest of my life. But like he said, I do want to decide to try to filter out as much garbage as I can without overstressing about it, and be able to let my body, let my temple operate the way it's supposed to, as close as I can to what's natural, not to things that are unnatural. Now, it's interesting for me to hear that he's saying that fluoride is not something that's natural. At least he's saying that the fluoride we're using, or the discovery of fluoride as we are using it now in the water and in the toothpaste, was not a natural occurring thing. But in the article I'm going to talk about later, we'll see that there is some discussion about it being natural. So hopefully we're going to glean some real understanding as we finish this video, and be able to make some choices that are good for us in the long run without sabotaging ourselves on the way we're trying to live better and eat better and have our health be as good as it can possibly be for the short time we're here.
Drink tap water, and your body will filter out the chloride, the chlorine, the fluoride. It'll filter out the microplastics. It'll filter out the pharmaceuticals, the trace pharmaceuticals. But there's an expense to that.
Exactly.
Right? There's a cumulative cost to that. And so, as soon as you are able to afford water filtration, get a water filtration system. Do a 4-stage RO filter and add some mineral salts, Baja Gold sea salt or Celtic salt back to remineralize your waters. Really inexpensive things that you can do to take the environmental and toxic load off of the body and remineralize the body.
I'm here in LA, and one of the things I want to talk about is Brita filters, because Brita filters are bullshit. They don't get fluoride out of your water.
Oh, they don't?
It's very hard to get fluoride out of your water. Even a Berkey filter will not get fluoride out of the water unless you use their post filter, which then puts aluminum hydroxide into the water. Wow. Or aluminum oxide. So the Berkey won't even get fluoride. It's very hard to filter fluoride out.
4-stage RO will do it.
Unless you're doing reverse osmosis. So I want people to know this, that really I think there are few better investments for your home or your apartment or your townhouse than a reverse osmosis filter.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I'm a psycho about filtering my water because I live in Miami and the water comes into a condo unit. God knows where those pipes have been before it gets in there. But I filter it down to 0.1 micron. And I use something called an Echo water filter. I have one under the counter. I have a whole home filtration system because, you're showering with all of that stuff. I did a really interesting post on Instagram the other day. Again, not trying to fear monger people, but I just took 2 glasses of tap water because interestingly, the hot water comes in one pipe in my house and you actually can't filter the hot water. It doesn't come in cold and then go through a heater. It actually comes up from the boiler in the basement hot. So one side of the faucet's not filtered. And I filled 2 glasses of water, just put them on the counter. And then I had my production manager, he was the guinea pig. I just had him hold 4 of his fingers in the water for 60 to 90 seconds. He just held his fingers in the water. And then he took his fingers out. And then I used chlorine drops. And I actually measured the amount of chlorine in each glass. And I think it was a big Perry Mason kind of ta-da moment for a lot of people because one glass turned bright yellow, showing the presence of chlorine where he did not put his hand. The other glass, which was from the same tap, showed no chlorine, showing that in 60 seconds it went right transdermal. So the body absorbed that chlorine right out of the water. And so that's what I mean about, we can let our bodies be the filter or we can filter it before our bodies. So right there before everybody's eyes, they were like, wow. And I go, now you're showering with that. You're drinking it. You're brushing your teeth with it. You're bathing in it. We're doing all kinds of things with this. You're washing your face with it in the mornings. And so I'm 100% with you on the water filtration.
Yeah, I can see that as well. Getting back to nature. Something Katie and I like to do when we get a chance is to go out camping or just to go out into the wild. And we also like to prepare for the worst. And the ITEAL portable water filtration system allows us to be able to do both. With its double activated carbon and reverse osmosis membranes, it can remove bacteria, viruses, parasites, heavy metals, pesticides, polyvinyl chloride, PFAs, and more. It has dual hoses, one for wash water and one for drinking water. You can always spot the one for drinking water. It's got the little white tip on the end, and it comes out clean as a whistle. Separate your hoses into 2 separate bottles, and you've got a way to have your wash water and your drinking water ready to go at all times. Thanks to its built-in 6,000 milliamp hour backup batteries that are rechargeable, it takes 3 hours to fully charge it, and it can purify a maximum of 9 gallons of water at a time. This is equivalent to meeting the water needs of 13 adults when they live in the outdoors for one day. Pair this device with ITEAL's 100-watt portable solar panel and a few extra filters, and you could stay in the wild almost indefinitely. Katie and I are very comforted by the idea that we can have clean water anytime thanks to the ITEAL water purification system. Just tastes clean to me.
It tastes like water. Well, obviously it tastes like water. It doesn't taste like swamp water, I guess. Tastes good. This is good to have as an emergency backup or just to have on camping trips. I love this thing. I think this thing is awesome.
And if you use my link in the description with my coupon code, you'll save $40 off this must-have device. I love it, Katie loves it, and I know you'll love it too. It's interesting. When I was younger, let's talk about the filtration systems first. First of all, I don't have a reverse osmosis filtration system on my house. It probably should have been something I put into the building instructions, but I got to tell you, building a house for the first time was just totally insane for me to be able to contemplate all the things that were going on and trying to make sure I was keeping it within a price range that wasn't going to push me into out of my budget, basically. Looking back, it would have been a good idea to do that. I did put a water softener system on mine because I have a well, and the well is very deep, but it also tends to have rust in the water. So the the water softener removes all of that, and then I had cleaner water. I don't tend to drink the water out of the well because of that, because I see that and I think, well, even if it is cleaning it out, it can't be perfect because it's just a water softener. I would love to have a reverse osmosis system on my house. The water that I do buy for my family to drink, I buy the Primo water from the store, those 5-gallon jugs, and then I take back the jugs and get them at a reduced price when they're already refilled. I have taken them in to get them refilled before manually, which is a whole lot cheaper, but it takes forever, especially if you've got 8 or 10 5-gallon jugs like I bring at one time. You could be standing there for an hour and a half, and there's other people waiting to use that thing, so it's not the easiest option. So using the exchange system works pretty good for me. It's just pricier than I would like it to be. And if I really sat down and did the numbers on it, I'm willing to bet a reverse osmosis system would pay for itself. So that's something that I personally need to look into, and I would encourage anybody to look into it, because having clean water is such an important part of our lives these days. You know, sometimes people will remind me that years ago, people didn't have salt companies to go and buy from. They didn't buy salt from salt mines. I get people that point this out to me that talk about, we don't need these electrolytes, that we don't need these minerals. And I don't believe that at all, because you also are not taking into consideration the water that people drank in years past that weren't filtered and also weren't polluted with all the industrial chemicals and all of the pharmaceuticals and all of the trace things that are being put into our water today from industrial pollution or whatever it is. It could be navigational pollution, the oil and the gas that leaks out of boats that go through the oceans, and then we pull the salt out. All of that gets mixed together today. But if you were drinking water, say back in 1750, then you're going to look at that water. If you ever saw Back to the Future Part 3, it was a great scene where Marty McFly was sitting there with his great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather, and they had just shot a rabbit, and he's sitting there eating the rabbit and spitting out the pellets that came from the shot that was in the shotgun. And then he looked at the water, and it was completely brown, because that's going to have a lot of those natural minerals in it. And it wasn't as bad as the water that we think of today, because it doesn't have all of those other things in it. But we were getting those natural elements from our water in years past. Sometimes the water was so bad, even back then, though, that it was difficult to drink. And that's one of the reasons why wine is talked about so often, especially in biblical times, because that was something you could drink that was not polluted as the water could be, especially if you started dealing with situations where the sanitation system of a city or a town was not being handled properly. Because if you get sewage mixed in with your water, then you've got some real contamination going on. And that wasn't uncommon in those past times. They had to make sure to keep their wells as clean as possible as far as being separated from the sewage. But even still, that water wasn't anything like what we're used to drinking today. And the water that we're used to drinking out of the tap is probably cleaner than that water is, but we're adding these other things like fluoride and chlorine. And there's a number of things that you're going to find in your water that you wouldn't even think about being in there, that have to do with the hormones that are released from the use of feminine products, for instance, in our water supply. So those are having an effect on us. All of that stuff's having an effect on us, and being able to filter it out is real important. When I was younger, I used to sell water filtration systems for a company called Shackley. The reason why I started selling those water filtration systems was when I saw the demonstration that was done. They took a jar and they put this device in it with 2 electrodes, and it would polarize the water. I don't know how to describe what that means, but basically it would separate whatever is in the water that's not water so that you could see it. So you'd pour the water into the jar and it would look like a clear glass of water, and there's nothing in there at all. But after a few minutes of having it plugged in with this polarization process, all of a sudden you started to see all this green muck forming at the top of the water and little particulates showing up in the water. And all of it was there all along. It's just that this polarization process was separating it out. And by the time I was done with a glass of tap water, whether it was from a well or whether it was from city water, it looked like something you just scooped out of a river somewhere. So that was when I began to realize, because we would test that same process on that reverse osmosis treated water, and none of that stuff would show up because it had all been filtered out. And I thought, well, I definitely don't want all this gunk in my system. I don't want to be the filter for this, so I would rather filter it out ahead of time. But what I've been doing since then is I've been buying my water already purified. And I figured, well, San Pellegrino, this is a bottled water. I know it's a mineral water. And I figured it was a lot like the purified water that I was getting. Now, I know a lot of spring waters are just that. They're right out of the spring, and you're not getting anything other than standard filtration. They're not doing a reverse osmosis on it. So the point is I figured by buying bottled water, by buying purified water, by buying mineral water from the store, that I was avoiding all of these substances. And then I got this article that Vinny Casolaro shared with me, and the website is called truthaboutfluoride.com. Does San Pellegrino water have fluoride? So let's take a look at the article together. I'm going to bring it up on the screen here. Does San Pellegrino water have fluoride? Updated October 23rd, 2023, so this is about 6 months old. All the way from Italy, does San Pellegrino water have fluoride? My favorite question with a very shocking answer. And to figure this out, not only are we going to take a look at the official water quality report, but to double check these results, I bought a bottle of San Pellegrino and tested it with a fluoride meter. Genius idea, I know. Does San Pellegrino have fluoride? To start off, let's take a look at the San Pellegrino water quality report. According to the water quality report, San Pellegrino sparkling natural mineral water contains 0.47 parts per million of fluoride. Yes, you read that right. 0.47 parts per million of fluoride, almost as much as tap water. Here's the section of the water quality report below with fluoride levels circled in red. So you can see it here. It's extremely low amount of arsenic. There's a small amount of asbestos, barium, beryllium, cadmium, chromium, cyanide. So the only one that showed up, even lead and mercury and nickel, the only one that showed up with a number other than ND was fluoride. So, that to me initially is a little concerning, but how much is that? How is that bad amount for you? Is that a high amount? I don't know. I would have to look into it. Now, I understand if it has as much as tap water does, and tap water has fluoride added to it, and that amount is higher than what's recommended on a tube of toothpaste for us to concern, it seems like it would be something to be concerned about. But there's another thing in this article that I think really drives the point home even better. So this would rank San Pellegrino with some of the highest fluoride levels among the 178 plus brands found at the bottled water without fluoride. In fact, there are very few with more fluoride. Crystal Geyser and Arrowhead are the only ones that come to mind. So there's another couple to watch out for. If you like Crystal Geyser or Arrowhead bottled water or mineral water, I don't even recognize those brands, but they have more than even San Pellegrino does. But before we get carried away, let's confirm the number we see in the water report by testing the bottle of San Pellegrino with a fluoride meter. So he did that, and he saw 0.4 parts per million. The fluoride meter registered 0.40 parts per million of fluoride in a bottle of San Pellegrino water, confirming the water quality report. And with such high levels of fluoride, San Pellegrino should be a strong pass. But before I jump to what brands you should be drinking, it's come to my attention that many people still believe San Pellegrino is a quality choice. So let's go through some important common misconceptions. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons I'm partial to San Pellegrino is because it's Italian mineral water, and I'm Italian. And I always kind of am partial to things that touch the heart for me. Like being American, I like buying American products if I can. I like to be able to support people that I live with. Not that I don't want to support people around the world, but I want to support my community, my closest community. And sometimes I have an affiliation with my Italian roots. So I always felt like, yeah, I want to drink the Italian mineral water if I had a choice. I like some of the other ones. I've had a German mineral water. I've had French mineral water. I've seen other ones. I think I often drink Voss, which is not mineral water, but it's spring water, and that comes from Norway. So I'm not against drinking other ones. If I had a choice, normally if I'd have seen 4 bottles of water available and San Pellegrino was one of them, I would have grabbed the San Pellegrino because of misconceptions. It just has to do with personal preference more than anything. I figured they were all the same. So it's interesting to know that they're not. 3 common misconceptions about San Pellegrino and fluoride. In case you're new here, let me remind you, fluoride is not an essential nutrient, and any effects it has on teeth is topical, contact with the teeth when using toothpaste, and not through ingestion, which would include drinking water. So now that we know there are 0 benefits to drinking fluoride, let's get to the misconceptions. The fluoride is, quote, natural. Now, I thought that this article mentioned that it had some natural side to it, so that's where I got confused earlier. Let's take a look. You'll often hear in defense of fluoride that it's natural, but keep in mind, so too is arsenic, lead, and mercury. So if you want to see what's natural for humans, you have to look at what we've been exposed to for thousands of years. And he put exposed in bold and underlined to explain that we've been exposed to things at different levels during different time periods. These days, it seems we're exposed to so many more of these things that we don't want in our body that's why vigilance is so important. On that note, it is far from natural for drinking water to contain fluoride. The truth is, surface waters like lakes, rivers, and springs, aka sources of waters humans have been drinking from the beginning of time, contain an average fluoride content of 0.05 parts per million, while a mother's breast milk contains extremely low levels of fluoride, 0.005 to 0.01 milligrams per liter. So if Mother Nature decided to not put fluoride in the water we drink and the milk we get from our mothers, how can it be considered natural? Okay, so that's a good point. I must have misread that earlier because I was thinking that it was something natural. And now listening to what the gentleman was saying earlier about how it was a side effect of basically chemical experiments, and they figured, oh, this works to help this, we'll start putting it in the water, makes it even more crazy in my mind than it ever was before, because I've just grown up with it always being there, and I figured it must be something that's good for us because that's what they told us, right? Just like all the people who told me to keep eating cereals and eating low-fat things, and no matter how much detriment it did to my body, all these things they told us to do have done so much damage. It's just upsetting, and I'd like to be able to point out that the reason I cover this stuff is not because I want to fear-monger you either, but I do want you to be awake to the truth of what's around you. And I'm waking up right along with you on some of this stuff, like fluoride. This is my first real foray into looking into it and trying to understand it. Is it a chemical additive or natural? Let's pretend like what I said above does not exist. How do we know for sure that fluoride found in San Pellegrino is not due to contamination? Well, we don't, since no one has ever done any tests, and it's just an assumption that it's natural. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to decide on what to put in my body based on an assumption, especially when you consider the next point. And this is the point I think that really drove it home for me on the importance of this article. There are better options to choose from. Now, if I'm completely honest, I don't think that fluoride in San Pellegrino would pose that much of a problem. And that's the way I kind of felt about it when I saw it and I was looking at the numbers compared to the water that's out there in our natural water supply or even in well water. For the main reason, San Pellegrino is high in calcium, which helps fight fluoride toxicity within the body. But with that being said, if you're going to pay a premium, and this is the key to me, if you're going to pay a premium, I think it would be best to choose a brand that is low in a toxin like fluoride. This way, you're actually getting a larger net benefit from the water you're drinking. And on that note, let's talk about those brands. I was surprised to see that when I looked over this, Evian had 0 parts per million of fluoride. So, I used to look at Evian and think, oh, that's so expensive for a bottle of water. But to have something as pure as that is quite intriguing to me. What should I drink now? For those that drink San Pellegrino, you'd be happy to hear there are many brands with less fluoride. For example, even a cheap brand like Deer Park was reported to contain anywhere from 0 to 0.16 parts per million of fluoride in Does Deer Park water have fluoride? much less than San Pellegrino. But just because a brand is low in fluoride does not mean it's safe to drink. So let's help you out and give you some more options to choose from. I've combined all 187 fluoride test results and put together a list of the best brands. All you have to do is enter your email below and I'll send it to you right away. Which is strange because I sent the email and I didn't get the list. I just got an email confirming that I got that he got it. But I did look into, there was somewhere where I was able to see the list. This way you'll know how much fluoride is in any brand of bottled water and you'll know which brands are the healthiest to drink. Anyways, there you have it. The truth about fluoride in regards to San Pellegrino water. Cheers. All right, so after taking a look at that, I'm pretty sure it was on this website though. Let me see, sources of fluoride. Let's go to the bottled water option. All right, this is, I think, what I saw yesterday. Let me double check and see. Yeah, because it started to show some of the brands and some of the names themselves, and here it is down here. This is what I found. Okay, and doing it on my iPhone was totally different than doing it here. This is a lot easier. But I remember seeing that the Evian was 0.0, and this is spring water, and it still has 0.0, so that's very good. Dasani has 0. The thing I worry about with a lot of these is they come in plastic bottles, so you wind up getting some microplastics in there, especially in those really thin plastics. Fiji water has 0.2. Perrier has 0.1. And Perrier is the major competitor for San Pellegrino. It's the ones I always see side by side at the convenience stores or supermarket. There's San Pellegrino with its 0.47, so much higher than all the rest. It's really kind of a surprise. And it's, it bothers me because it was my favorite. There's the German one I've tried, and that's Gerolsteiner, and it's got 0.4 also, so it's not much better than San Pellegrino. So this site has everything available for you to see on there if you want to go through and look for your favorite bottle of water and find out how your fluoride is doing. And this is the kind of information I think that's really helpful for us when we see a video like that where they talk about fluoride, and it just kind of stirs up general concern about fluoride itself rather than going into some of the details like this about where you can find information about what's in the water you're drinking, because not everybody can afford a water purification system right off the bat. And even though in the long run it's cheaper to buy the water purification system than it is to keep on buying bottled water, it's difficult to make that overall jump sometimes because it might be thousands of dollars up front. Whereas when you're doing it out over time, it's a lot easier. Just like the reason why people don't pay for a car all up front, they wind up paying a lot more for it so they can pay for it over time and save a little bit of money out of their paycheck. But this would give you some great information. This Truth About Fluoride website, I would recommend to anybody. And I hope you found this reaction to Dr. Saladino's video useful for you. And I hope even more that you find this website about Truth About Fluoride helpful for you so that you can make good decisions for your family, as I know we're all trying to do. Well, that's all I got for this one, guys. Stick around for a quick commercial from one of my affiliates, and I appreciate you being here. I'll see you next time.
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?